Ingrid Leary, the Labour MP for Taieri. That's right, wasn't it? Fourth formers, they knew everything, didn't they? They'd been there a year, bossed the kids around.
Yeah, fourth form was an interesting time. I don't know how it was for you, Michael, but I think it's a year between third form when everything's shiny and new and fifth form when you've got serious work to do. So lots of fourth formers play up. It's definitely not my plan for this year.
Oh, Ingrid, I don't know. You've got that playful glint in your eye already. Now, do you know, actually, when Parliament is convening again? Have you been told?
I think it's going to be the 5th of December. I don't know if that's been formalised, but that's the date everybody's working on. I think that's been floated publicly because people need to make plans to fly in and so on. So that's the date we're working on, which I think is next Wednesday.
Oh, next Wednesday, not next Tuesday.
Oh, could be. The 5th is the date that everyone's...
I'm looking at it at the moment. The 5th is a Tuesday.
Oh, there we go. I've got that wrong. So, yeah
that's right.
Tuesday.
There's only 30 days in November.
Yes.
So it's the 1st on Friday. Okay. Now, you've had a chance, I presume, to look at, if not in detail, certainly have a once-over of the two coalition documents that have been published, or the two coalition agreements that have been published. What's your impression?
Well, it's going to be an interesting dance, isn't it? There's a lot of compromise in there. I think most New Zealanders want a new government to have a go, and myself included. There was a strong mood for change. So there's a sense of, let's sit back and give this group a go and see what they can do. I have to say the first week's been pretty horrific in terms of, from our perspective, hearing how the tax cuts are planned to be funded by repealing the smoke-free legislation, something that wasn't really talked about at all during the election campaign and will set New Zealand back by years. And, we had world-leading legislation that was working, was bringing smoking rates down by 1% per year. We had a record rate of around 7% last year. All of that's going on with the bonfire. And it's going to be really detrimental to the health system, to young people who will be able to buy cigarettes, and of course to our most marginalised communities like Māori.
Why do you say that? Because I'm presuming that there'll still be smoking cessation programs and there'll still be public health programs that will be seeking to deal with those few people who still continue to smoke, Ingrid?
Yeah, but the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? This legislation was working more effectively than anything else that's happened. So our smoking rates have slowly come down over time, but there was a sticky amount. And the smoke-free legislation, basically the beauty of it was that it meant young people wouldn't take it up. And of course you need to have the cultural change to go with that. Vaping has been part of that cultural change. Now that's been problematic. In my view, the vape laws have been too loose. We've changed that, and in September we've had new laws or regulations come in that have made it less attractive to young people to start vaping. Some of those are going to be repealed too, and we don't know what the specifics are, but I just get a sense that young people will be able to smoke again, so that may be the preference rather than vaping. And young people will be able to buy cigarettes. It's a massive step backwards. The policy was working, whereas cessation programs work for some people, but you just don't want people starting smoking in the first place.
Sorry, is it your understanding, because I don't know, but that's why I'm asking, is it your understanding that the coalition agreement will reduce the price of a packet of cigarettes from its current price?
No, my understanding is that they will simply repeal the ability for young people who will now legally be able to purchase cigarettes. So in our laws, you could not buy tobacco if you were born after 2008. That is now going to be repealed. So the signal to young people is, it's fine to buy cigarettes.
Right. Because, you see, from my point of view, and I guess from yours as well, I look at the price of a packet of cigarettes, Ingrid, and I go, who the hell can afford to smoke?
Yeah, that's right. But it's about signals that you send to the market, as you know. And, I mean, to me, it's just really this crazy idea of taking this giant leap backwards, which is going to cost something like $1.3 billion over the next 20 years, is a sign of a bit of a desperate measure because Nicola Willis staked her finance portfolio on providing tax cuts. They've been stymied by the coalition talks. They couldn't do the foreign sales, which I'm very happy about. And in some desperation, I've looked, where are we getting a high amount of tax? Oh, let's make that easier. It's just bad.
Okay. Well, obviously some public health officials, well, maybe a lot of them, agree with you as well. That said, I would have thought alcohol is a much more pernicious and has a much more dangerous and damaging effect upon society at large, including Maori and Pacific Islanders, than tobacco smoking.
I don't know. I agree that it does a huge amount of damage and that there does urgently need to be some alcohol law reform in terms of how many shops can be selling it in certain locations, the concentration of shops. I personally favour a change in the laws on sponsorship of sports for young people. That was something where Chloe Shawbuck's bill was a conscience vote. I supported that. I felt that it went a step further than our Labor position and was something that I really felt we've seen, with tobacco sponsorship, that the breach can be filled fairly quickly by corporate sponsorship. It wouldn't be the end of children's sport, which had been touted by some people. So I agree, alcohol's damaging, there needs to be law reform. I don't know if you can compare the damage of alcohol and cigarettes because they do damage in a different way, but we certainly know that there are, immediate, direct links to bad health, really severely bad health outcomes on long-term smoking for most people that do it. Alcohol's got that plus other damage as well.
I guess Christopher Luxon's answered that this morning in some ways on the smoking one. He's talked about ram raids and things like that, but he's also talked about having two classes of citizens, a 35-year-old who can smoke and a 34-year-old who can't legally do so. And he says that just doesn't make sense. Do you see a logic in that response?
There's a logic to it, but I don't think it's the right answer. And, I don't think that is what has caused this position. I think they've been desperate to find a way to fund their tax cuts. You've got former tobacco lobbyists in the National Party in terms of Chris Bishop and the caucus. You've got people who are known as smokers who probably have very strong views about, personal rights and freedoms. But public smoking is a public health issue, in my view, and we should be focusing on efforts to stop people starting in the first place. That's exactly what the smoke-free legislation did, and I don't buy the idea that it will push the black market underground and so on, because that's about making sure you implement things to ensure a black market doesn't happen. So that's about getting the rest of your other policies correct and the implementation of them.
Listen, I'm not being silly here, but I sat on a district health board for 3 terms, and I always asked this question and never got a proper answer. Why do Maoris smoke more as an ethnicity than non-Maori?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that clinically it has been shown that Maori are more vulnerable to the health impacts of smoking. Now, I don't know why that is as well. It's the same as we can see trends of more significant risk of diabetes, for example, in Māori and Pacifica. So that could be genetic, it could be the level.
Is it cultural, do you think? Well, I was just wondering if it's cultural because it's become part of Maori culture or something. Because I remember we ran a public health program, Ingrid, this is 10 years ago, longer than that, designed to try and warn Maori women who were the worst smokers, young Maori women. And after we'd finished the program, we measured its effectiveness and found that we'd spent millions of dollars and that there were more Maori women smoking than when we started. So obviously it didn't work. Do you think it's part cultural that would be one of the reasons why Maori would smoke?
Well, it depends on what you mean by culture. Certainly, the norms of a social group, and so I use culture in the broader sense, will have an impact on people's behaviours in that group. That's obvious. So I don't think you can say it's pertinent to the fact that they are Māori people. If you had a Pākehā person who hung around in a Māori environment where a lot of people were smoking, I guess that's your control test. What I would question is, what was the methodology used in the cessation program? Was it designed by Māori for Māori? One of the most compelling programs that I've seen that's worked, that I've looked at, was in Canada, where there was a very strong narrative about why would you take up smoking when you're kind of enabling the people who colonised you to get richer, and it's at the expense of your health. That messaging worked. So, was the program, what was it about the program that why didn't it work? It would be my question.
Okay. Now, you've delivered smoke-free legislation. You've said that's bad. You've said you are pleased about the coalition agreement getting rid of the foreign buyers tax. What other aspects of the coalition agreement do you like, dislike, find offensive, regard as helpful?
I think the instatement of the two leaders of the other parties and having turns at being the deputy is an interesting proposition, and I've seen that work effectively in local boards. That's probably where that model came from, and that seemed like a reasonable way to resolve that impasse.
Yeah.
I think that I am cautiously happy about the fact that Winston Peters will be the foreign minister. He has experience in that field. He understands the Pacific dynamics and has strong relationships there. And he is not naive to what is happening in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. So for that reason, I think that is as good an appointment as we'll get in that coalition government. And it will be interesting to see how that develops over the 3 years as geopolitical pressure increases in our region as well.